by the time that I had a desire to visit a website, I had already lost the battle, right? At that point, I can't even resist it because I've been exposing myself to it too much. Right now, what's going on, people? It's Josh, aka Foresight, coming to you live once again from the other side of the culture. We are in the culture, but not of it. And we follow biblical truth instead of cultural trends. So today we're going to jump right into this video of Dr. Vodi Bakum talking about how to deal with and eventually overcome addiction to sexually explicit content. So let's go ahead and get into it and discuss it.
We live in a pornographic culture, and that's one of the things that makes it very difficult to deal with pornography. We've been so inundated with pornography that we're desensitized to pornography. And that line at which we will say that's pornographic has been drawn so far out into the realm of the inappropriate that we have people who dress pornographically and they're not bothered by it and we're not bothered by it anymore. So one thing that I say to people in this area is that we need to recognize that we are living in a pornographic culture.
So personally, I struggled with lust and pornography for the majority of my life, if I'm just being honest, right? Just like most boys and men do. And for most of my life, I honestly saw nothing wrong with it. Because looking back on it, I now know that I had just been desensitized, right? I think deep down, I knew there was something wrong about it, but I guess over time, that sensitivity got drowned out by my surroundings. You know, our culture not only accepts this behavior, but it promotes it. Just flat out promotes it. You know, people talk about watching these videos and, you know, their addiction openly and casually, right? And they don't see it as addiction. You know, most of the songs and music videos are pornographic, if we're being honest, right? Everything around us is so sexually charged that you become numb to it. And by the time you notice it's a problem, if you ever notice it's a problem, there's just so many layers to peel back that it can seem insurmountable.
Part of dealing with the roots of pornography are acknowledging the fact that we have been desensitized to it and acknowledging the fact that my problem with pornography, let's say that there's a pornography scale of 1 to 10, and 10 is, you know, full on, you know, I'm engaging in, you know, the worst examples and extremes of pornography. Well, I think culturally, we probably live every day around a 3 or 4, just in commercials and just in, you know, just in the things that we become desensitized to.
Years ago, when I started getting closer to God, I realized that I needed major healing in this area, right? The hardest part of overcoming it was not being aware of all of the things that just flew under the radar, undetected. You know, I was so focused on, you know, not visiting these websites and not watching these videos, and I couldn't understand why it was such a struggle, right? And what I realized was that before I would ever even think about going to one of these websites, right, other smaller things that I wasn't even guarding against, I had no defense against, had been stirring up lust inside of me all day long, right? Without my knowledge. You know, I would go on Instagram and see nothing but Instagram models, right? In tight clothing with, you know, their body parts showing and all these other things, right? And I used to follow a bunch of these types of pages. Like I subscribed to them back when I saw nothing wrong with it, right? And just thinking it was harmless, thinking that's what men do, right? That's what all my friends do. That's what we grew up doing. You like what you see, so you follow it and you look at it and you scroll, and that's just what we do. So I thought there was nothing wrong with it. I honestly used to believe that it was harmless, not realizing that I was exposing myself to lustful temptations all day long. And by the time that I had a desire to visit a website, I had already lost the battle, right? At that point, I can't even resist it because I've been exposing myself to it too much and too often throughout the day to have a strong defense at the last line of defense, right? It would just be too late. So I noticed that I had to proactively, unfollow certain pages and block certain content from even coming across my feed because it was the quote unquote innocent stuff that was leading to the behavior that I knew was wrong. And in order for me to cut out that behavior, I would also have to start, kind of getting some of the smaller, quote unquote, smaller things in order for me to be successful.
If I'm living at a 3 or 4 and a 5 or a 6 really doesn't bother me anymore, then when I get to a 9, my goal in dealing with somebody who's at a 9 is not to say, come back to a 5 or 6. My goal with them is to say, I want you to recognize not just that this is an issue, but that even those things that are down here in the areas that we're not even bothered by are issues. Not so that the person becomes, just afraid of looking around, but so that the person becomes aware of their need for Christ to cleanse their minds, not just of the website where I'm watching pornographic sex, but also of my lack of sensitivity to those everyday examples of pornography that are around me, because to the degree that I go on accepting them and am no longer bothered by them, to that degree, I'm setting myself up so that the leap from that 5 to that 9 is a very short leap.
My relationship with Christ definitely exposed a lot of things that I had become desensitized to. The Holy Spirit sparked a desire in me to make changes in these areas and, not just give in to my sinful desires. God literally had to renew my mind, like baptize my mind, right? He allowed me to see these things for what they really were. And over time, he just started to make me aware of how offensive these things are in the sight of a holy and righteous God. And, he slowly but surely started to peel back those layers so that I could see clearly and I could begin to deny those desires, right? Through the power of the Holy Spirit.
And it's not just so that I won't leap over into the worst of pornography, but it's so that I can understand the dignity inherent in human beings made in the image of God, and how my embrace of a pornographic understanding of my fellow man, my fellow woman, is the embrace of the destruction of their dignity. So that if I see a young woman who is presenting herself in a pornographic way, and that's not bothering me, I've just said something about the dignity of that woman as made in the image of Christ. And until that becomes an issue for me, not in the sense of walking around, sort of with my eyes, blocked off, but in the sense of appropriating God's grace and asking him to appropriate that grace in me, even at that level. Until I'm there, I'm not really dealing with this issue of pornography.
1 Corinthians 6:13 says, the body is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord. And when you begin to understand that, it starts to change the way you feel about sexually explicit content, right? And gratifying your sinful desires. You know, if you know, like I know, you understand that you can never, and I mean never, satisfy that desire. You can never quench it, ever. It's never enough. It's a bottomless pit, and you just keep falling deeper and deeper into it. You know, that's why we need Christ to cleanse our minds, renew our minds, and fill us with his spirit, you know, so that we can, you know, with or through his power, through his ability, deny our flesh. So I'm praying that, you know, if you're dealing with this addiction and you struggle to resist watching these types of videos, I hope this video helps you in one way or another. And I pray that the Lord fills you with the Holy Spirit and, you know, gives you the strength to resist every temptation. Anyway, get in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know your own experiences and, you know, how you overcame this addiction, or if you're still struggling, you know, get in the comments and let's discuss. Check out the links down in the description, and I'll catch y'all next time. All right, now,